Thank you all for joining, all of you who joined. If you've got any questions as we go, feel free to shoot them in the chat box for me. I've got a couple questions I took beforehand, but if you got any other questions, please let me know. So we're talking name, image, likeness. My name is Pat Curran. I'm one of the co-founders here at the Sports Biz Network, but I'm also a former college athlete, a former college coach, and worked in 2 different athletic departments. And now what I do is work with athletes on basically what is called name, image, likeness at the pro level. That's what we were doing about a year ago. When this whole NIL deal came about, we thought this was a great opportunity for us as a company to start working with college athletes and to be advocates for them. When I was in school, I'm 37. In 2002, you could go to our bookstore and get a number 5 jersey for Josh Harris, who was our quarterback at the time. And that dude could barely afford a good pair of jeans. And so I've been passionate about this for years and will continue to be passionate about this. And my big thing is about helping educate athletes. I do understand if you listen to our last talk with Selena, Faith, and Becca, and if you're watching this after, you should go watch it. But it's not all about the money. I'm going to talk about money a little bit here and ways to monetize it, but it's about building a brand, building a community, because this is so much bigger than just making a few bucks. To me, this is the most hands-on education opportunity of all time for a college student to actually, specifically college student athlete, but to actually be able to work on your brand and to be able to do things, to be able to actually work on your brand and do real things and not just create fake projects for school is such an advantage from an education standpoint, because you actually get to do these things. So I'll get into it a little bit. I'll talk a little bit about what name, image, likeness is, about some opportunities you could have, some brand building tips, and we'll go from there. If you don't know who that is, that's Paige Beckers right there. UConn basketball player, was a freshman player of the year this past year, an absolute monster, and has about 1 million followers on social across platforms. And if she isn't the most marketable athlete in all of college sports next year, she's right there. And so I talk to athletes like this, or I want this conversation to be focused more from an athlete perspective, to talk to these types of athletes. But I think there's lots of value if you're a coach or if you're a parent listening on as well. So go to the next slide here. What is name, image, likeness? And again, if you watched our last presentation here, I'll repeat myself a little bit so this can be a standalone presentation. But name, image, likeness basically means you cannot get paid as a college athlete to play. You cannot get paid based off your performance. As we speak right now, this is Wednesday, June 9th. There's still a Congress hearing going on right now talking about name, image, and likeness. Rule-wise, I'm going to pull up my notes here for the different states so you know as you're watching here. College athletes right now, as of July 1st, will be able to profit off their name, image, likeness in Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, and New Mexico. Also, states likely to have something in place by July 1, Oklahoma and Nebraska. And then a lot of states are working actively on this stuff. Connecticut, Iowa, Illinois, Texas, Oregon, and some other states have laws that are passed for future dates that are all trying to get it here for July 1. Mark Emmert, the NCAA president, said about an hour ago at this Congress hearing is we need to have something in place. So it's legislated across states. And as I say, if it's not that way, it's going to be an absolute shit show on what this looks like come July 1. So other things to note around name, image, likeness is, you can't have in social posts or things you might do there, can't have logos of teams. You can't have Nikes or Adidas in your branded posts and stuff like that. And I won't touch a whole lot on stuff like that today, but certainly if you go on my social, follow my social at Pat_Curran Media. I'm always talking about stuff like this, and I'm happy to share any thoughts afterwards with people as well. This is Spencer Rattler, quarterback at Oklahoma State. The game really is changing. Again, like I said, in 2002 and 1950, and you've never been able to do this stuff before. And I think it's such a great opportunity for these athletes. But the education and opportunity starts today. Just because you can't make money until July 1, depending on where you are, doesn't mean you can't be working on this stuff right now. Working on growing your brand, identifying your brand, and starting to grow your opportunities as we speak. And that's where I've been talking to athletes. Just to backtrack a little bit, in the last year, Tim and I, my brother, business partner, we've probably talked to 1,000+ athletes, coaches, and players. Some of those are actual presentations. Some are just conversations like, hey, let's talk about some opportunities around this. or some are just in my DMs like, hey, what can I do? How can I start preparing? That sort of deal. But I really think this starts, excuse me, this starts right now with understanding how to monetize your name, image, like this, and how to build a brand, because this isn't something that a college athlete's ever done. It's something most college coaches have never thought about and done, and certainly most people on a campus have not done. So my goal here is to have you leave here in the next 40 minutes with something you can take back either as an athlete or coach or parent and help your athlete start doing something today. I want you to start today because it matters. All right, important areas of education. I'm just going to touch on these. This is something we've talked to college teams about. These are some things you should be focusing on. Whether or not you spend hours on each of them, I think is debatable, but these are the important key factors that I think are important around name, image, likeness. And I have up there at the beginning is understanding how to build a community. I'll touch a little bit more on that as we go. In each of these bullet points, I'm not going to go into super in depth with each of them, but I'll talk a little bit about some of them as we go and build out from there. But I think the most important thing when it comes to social, it doesn't matter if you're a college athlete, a high school athlete, or a pro athlete, is building a community around it. When you're LeBron James or you're Zion Williamson, this probably isn't that important because the community is going to come to you. But you can truly build through social a massive community through what you do. And I think where I've seen a lot from NIL talks and from coaches and whatnot, it's like, come to my school, we'll help you build your brand here. And there's obviously something to that. But when it comes to understanding how to build an actual brand, there's so much more than just being at the right school or having a great season. Because if you get injured and your whole brand is tied into how good of a player you are, what are you going to do? That's why I think showing who you are as a person, we'll get into more of this in the future here, or in this conversation, but showing us who you are much more than just an elite athlete is so important to building a brand and building a community. Understanding that social growth adds value to your brand. I mean, to me, that seems so clear, but I think so few are really taking advantage of the opportunity to grow. And a lot of places, a lot of schools, what they have in place is a program to where athletes maybe get some base level education, but what they can do is click on a box and make some money. And I think there's tons of value in that. But what we're missing out is the opportunity to grow. And if it's just about money, which I don't think it should be, but in the case of money, is if you have 25 followers or you have 25,000 followers, your value's higher and you're going to earn more income from a base level there. So you've got to learn how to grow and to teach athletes how to grow and how to do this stuff. And I'll get into a little bit more of that here in just a minute. Teaching this, to me, this is like number 2 behind building a community is you've got to understand that this is a business tool. And it's cool. You can do the dances on TikTok and that can be for business. You can just post random pictures on your Instagram feed, and you can throw out some random lyrics on Twitter from time to time. But you've got to think of all of this together as a holistic one business tool. And it is. There's people that build multi-million-dollar businesses just from this damn phone, sitting on their butt at home. And that's where the mindset shift, I think this is the most important mindset shift that needs to happen around name, image, likeness, is for an athlete to understand, hey, don't just post a couple pictures of you practicing, a couple pictures of you in a game, a family shot, and something that you look good in. Like, understand this is a business tool and a business opportunity. And whether or not you care about making money today or long-term, you've got an opportunity to grow in a career based off stuff you post today with this giant platform you have as an athlete. And that giant would be more like the big time, the Duke basketballs, the Alabama footballs, and big time Division I football and basketball and softball we've seen this week, baseball. Those can get you massive eyeballs. But even at a little place like Ashland University, a Division II place I was at, there's eyeballs and opportunities based around schools and places like that as well. Next thing I think is important to talk about, brand management and growth. I've talked a little bit about, I mentioned the growth, but I think brand management is a different type of concept. But I think it's important to understand what that means and how to manage your brand and create based on who you are and what your brand is. And I'll talk more about this here in a second. Entrepreneurship, starting businesses. Entrepreneurship can be starting a YouTube channel. That can be a business you start through YouTube. from Twitch, launching merchandise. These are all potential opportunities around name, image, and likeness that I think are not always talked about, but super, super important. Educate on opportunities and how to shift your mindset on social. I mentioned above that this needs to happen, but then how do you make it happen? Like, what do I do? And I'll talk about some of that here in a second. Crafting a personal brand that is authentic to you and helps you build a community. You got to be authentic to you. It's so easy to see through that stuff. If it's not you, if it feels authentic. I had a lower level athlete reach out to me yesterday and asked me a question about, I'm not like I don't have the biggest personality. I don't like to put myself out there all the time, but I want to grow. And I was like, well, you got to be authentic to you. I mean, you don't have, I'm more of a louder, I'll high energy type on social. You don't have to be that person if you're not that. And if I wasn't that, I wouldn't do that. But you can create different ways to showcase your knowledge and get people to care about what you're talking about and not be unauthentic to who you are. So I think that's very important to stay on brand with that too. Educational potential negative effects. I mean, we talk about mental health. Obviously, when you talk on social media, there's stuff that's super negative when it comes to social. You have a bad game, there's going to be some negative effects about that larger community. You miss a tackle, you miss a free throw, like those things are going to happen. I think it's important to talk about that. That's not always what I'm talking about here on social, but I think that's important to note and teach your athletes potential bad practices. Obviously, like the dumb stuff. That's usually what teams are talking about is don't do the dumb shit. Don't, if you're at the club, don't talk about you drinking and don't be disrespectful and blah, blah, blah. Obviously don't do those things, but I think it's important to talk about it. Some other things I wrote down that I wanted to touch on was think about if you take a partnership. If I take a partnership with BlissDex, I'm probably not going to be able to do a partnership with Burt's Bees. So think about that's a negative effect, right? You take a partnership, you're not going to be able to go directly work with a competitor right now. There's going to be something involved in a contract wise that probably is going to have a non-compete. Like you can't work with a competitive brand on that perspective. Yeah, that's the main part about that. And I know that's probably more for bigger athletes, but I still think, Joe's Pizza down the street may not want you posting about Jeff's Pizza or Susie's Pizza down the street as well. So it's important to know if you sign a partnership and take a deal from one brand or one company, you probably won't be able to work with their direct competitor right away either. So just things to think about. How to understand your value in the market and who it has value to. I saw this Johnny Manziel. I don't know if people out there saw this. Johnny Manziel on Busting with the Boys this past week talked about how he signed like 10,000 autographs, he said, for $3,000 while he was in college. I understand that was illegal at the time. I also think that's bullshit. But the point of that is his value is way higher than that. A Johnny Manziel should not be signing 10,000 autographs for 30 cents an autograph. He should be making way more than that. So it's important to understand that. Some schools have things in place for that. There's lots of tools out there. I'm happy to point people in the right direction to give you a general idea of what the value in your market might be. And then I think it's very important to then understand who does it have value to. If I'm trying to talk on my social, who I talk to are athletes and people who are interested in athletic marketing. If it's not going to land on my mom. My mom doesn't give a damn about athlete marketing. Now, she might want to see it because it's me talking or whatever, but I need to understand who my market is and curtail that messaging to that specific market because it has value to them. How to create and launch a business, how to pitch to a brand, I think can be synonymous in understanding next steps. These are obviously like, all right, I've got my brand, I'm building my community. Now, how do I actually monetize and take this to another level type of stuff? How does this succeed in a brand campaign? Very often, and the reason we even got into working with athletes, we were on the brand side a handful of years ago, and we saw so many athletes miss opportunities while working with brands, whether that be on the specific campaign we were working on, or they had issues with, I see a question pop up here. How would an athlete go by determining their own market value? I think there's a couple different tools. I'll shoot them. I'll shoot them in a DM, but I don't want to promote any specific places around that. But I think you can sometimes just Google stuff like, what is my value as an influencer? And you can get some answers on there as well. But I'm not gonna give any specific tools. I don't want to shout them out here. Anyhow, I was saying around, who knows what I was saying. Anyhow, I don't remember what I was saying. That's what happens when you got two young kids at the house. Brain's not always working on 100%. But so, oh, that was no, I don't know. Anyway, I'm moving on. How to create long-term partnerships. I think so often, and this is where the tools online to just have you click a box and take, hey, brand X is offering you X number of dollars. Do you accept? Yes. Again, this has value, but what this doesn't teach you is how to be more of a business behind that, to create a long-term partnership. If Blistex comes to me, or Calvin Klein Glasses comes to me and says, hey, we want to pay you $1,500 for you to post on your channels. Cool. All right. Well, one, we need to then go back and understand where my value is. Am I worth 1,500 or am I worth more than that? But two, why not create more of a long-term partnership and have a concept back to them? For my audience, this is going to bring more value if I do something more on a 3 to 6 month type concept, or even just to a local standpoint. If you're at Joe's Pizza again, and they want you to come do an appearance one time at their spot for, March Madness, to watch March Madness games, and you're going to sign autographs and you're going to get an appearance fee. Well, why not go back to them and pitch more of a long-term type partnership? Hey, I want to come every weekend or every Friday night, or I'm going to be there for the next 4 Thursdays around March Madness or off-season type stuff. Because that's when you really learn business skills and learn to grow from where you are right now. And then agent and marketing representation. Again, we don't know all the rules around all this stuff, but it's clear that you will be able to have agent and marketing representation. We don't know exactly how that's going to look, but I think it's very, very important to understand that if you're an athlete, you need to understand what this means. Who are some good people to work with? Who are some not good people? It doesn't matter if they're a big agency. We've worked with big agencies. Some are real shit. Some are still good. But from a standpoint of just checking a box and getting money, that's where you can hinder your athletes from a coach and an athletic department standpoint, is you're not teaching them how to navigate all this stuff. You're teaching them just how to do this one thing and post. Again, it has value, but I think when you talk about more of a long-term education piece, that there should be more of teaching on how to be able to do some of this stuff, and an agent and marketing rep can definitely help you with that. All right, what is your brand? Pardon me here. So again, this is where I think it's important to identify early what is your brand. Now, for me, the two biggest questions are, what are you known for, and what do you want to be known for? All right, I'm a football player, but am I known for other stuff? There was an athlete, we had talked to a coach, and this was probably 6 months ago, and they were talking about their athlete who was an accounting major, and obviously passionate about finance and talking about finance a lot. But if you went on our social page, you would have no idea that was the case. So our thought was, and this ties into the next question, what do you do outside of your sport? To us, there was such a massive opportunity to start putting together basic financial advice clips. She's at a big school with a big audience. She can put out just basic tips to her audience to help create an audience of people who look to her as someone who's knowledgeable about the financial world. And it doesn't have to be like, obviously you can't give true financial advice, but what she could do is begin to get people interested in what she's talking about financially. Keep in mind, she's at a college where, again, it's a big school, but also you've got 18 to 22-year-olds, the specific market where people want to get into, speak to people in the financial world, want to get those people because now they're going to start making money. Now they're going to actually need to know some of these things. And if she started creating just small snippet pieces that she could share, maybe the team would share from time to time, there'd be so much benefit to her and her growing a brand. When we talk about brand stuff, I'm almost never talking about you and your sport. I think they're obviously that's probably what you're known for at a lot of places, but I think when we go to what do you want to be known for, there's so much more to you as the person. And also, yes, I root for Bowling Green or Alabama football or Texas soccer or whatever your thing is. And that's going to give me, as a fan, an immediate reason to root for you. But then keep in mind all of the other athletes on the team and all the other athletes that are in the country. And the scalability of a potential business from you can start from being much more than just an athlete. Posting the typical athlete feed, I mentioned this a few minutes ago, of just a picture, a game in a practice or working out, picture, a video in a game, picture of you with the fan, picture of you with, looking good whenever you think you look good in. it has a little bit of value, but there's no personality, there's no buy-in, there's no real relationship or tie to who you are. So if I don't know you personally, and I'm not a mega fan of Texas Tech lacrosse, I'm probably not going to hit that follow button. But if I see that you're interesting, or you're funny, or you're teaching me how to be a better TikTok, someone how to manage TikTok better, I'm probably going to follow you. And there's so many people like that, where you could build your entire brand off of stuff outside of your sport, while using this massive platform of being a collegiate athlete to be able to showcase that message. Next is community building. And I keep saying this too, and I said it a lot on this last panel we did, but this damn thing is a business tool to the nth degree. You can create almost anything you want to create, period, through that social device, whether that's like photos or edits or videos or YouTube channel, or you could even stream on Twitch live from your phone. All this comes back to your phone and what you can create there. As far as community building, this is where you can really grow who you are and what you do. Of course, you got to be authentic to you. Some athletes, I think, have done a great job of stuff like this. I mentioned on our last panel, Sedona Prince, who's at Oregon, a basketball player, is now over 2 million followers on TikTok, and I'd imagine another 500,000 to 1 million across other platforms. And this stemmed from, one, she's a good athlete, right? Two, they're a good team. That matters too. Three is the biggest thing that she really blew up upon was she called out the NCAA, where the indiscrepancies in the weight room of the women's tournament versus the men's tournament. And a lot of people saw what she did. And then she also followed up with a lot of things around that. Hey, thank you, NCAA. Hey, here's what we got now. And so much more than that. And now she's consistently putting out interesting, funny, and engaging content. And that's why her following has grown so much. There's this opportunity as an athlete to understand that you've got, we talked, the last panel was a bunch of people from Duke women's basketball. I looked on their IG, they got 55,000 fans, 55,000 people that follow their IG, which are 55,000 fans, which are 55,000 people for the Duke women's basketball players to potentially have in their market. And people who give a damn about what they're doing and people to engage with. And you can start from a base level. Like, the easiest thing I say is, one, you've got to have quality content, but two, go onto your team channels or your league channels and just comment back to those people. If you look at, I'm gonna pull up this Duke women's basketball one here in just a second and see just the last post. And you'll see it's just a few hours ago, there's 19 comments of people talking back to talking that you could be engaging with. Those are the types of people that are going to care about what you're doing. Those are the types of people that want to go to your camps or want to buy your merch when all that stuff starts to come out. There's another Q&A popped up. Anyway, but so you've got this built-in audience. And then, I played Division II football after Division I football, and there's still thousands of people that follow those channels. I would reach out and from a base level start. Hey, can I do an IG takeover on the first day of camp? Or can I do some more, a day in the life, week 2 of the football season? Or can I have this, I'm going to talk to, youth athletes today. Can I take over the channels? If you've got this built-in audience, take advantage of that. From a community building perspective and getting people invested in you, that's how that happens. You've got the built-in audience of the team. Now you've got to communicate and build relationships with this. I thought Selena Castillo did a great job of highlighting that. It's about relationships, and you can have a relationship with people here on IG or Twitter or TikTok. And as simple as commenting back sometimes is such a big deal to people who follow you. And those people will probably screenshot that comment back or that like to a comment and put it on their IG story and text it to 10 people like, oh my God, person X, Paige Beckers just commented back to me. I posted something about Paige Beckers once, and I got like 10 Paige Beckers following, or 10 Paige Beckers fan accounts commented back on my photo or commented to my DMs about it. That's the real life opportunity that you can create from social, is you've got these people that really are invested in who you are and what you're doing. Now, when you post that picture of you post game and 45 people comment on there and you don't say anything back to those people, it's almost like they're they're walking in your front door being like, yo, Pat, great job. That was awesome. Great game. And you're like, I'm out. Like, you don't say anything, just comment back. Now, if you do start to get a big following and have a bunch of comments, obviously that can be tough to deal with, but spend 5-10 minutes, comment back to people, comment on your team accounts, and be ingrained in where your market is. And if your market is youth basketball players, I'd be on the overtime channels. I'd be on ESPNW if I'm a women's basketball player specifically. I'd find the accounts that are relevant to me and I would be active on them. That's the same type of conversation you can have in those 5-10 minutes that I talk about, just spending 5-10 minutes or 15 minutes on social from a business standpoint. You can be commenting back and engaging with people who are then going to go to your page, consume what you have, and decide if, hey, I want to follow Pat Curran because of what he posts or what she posts based on who they are as a person, right? And I talk about, when we talk to an athlete and athletes we work with, is we get, I should have switched the position on this, but I didn't. That happens, is creating in pillars. I think it's important to think about it in this perspective is sometimes people just post to post. And I think that's where you can kind of get lost in what you're creating, and your audience is like, yo, what is this person about? I think pillars are important. And this is what I mean by pillars. So like have 3 to 4 different buckets you put your content in, whether that's obviously if we're a college athlete, we're going to put some sports stuff. So bam, sports stuff. Maybe you're this finance, this accounting major. Let's talk finance in one. And then maybe it's just creating a business, because this also aligns with what you're talking about. Bam, you're talking about business. Every post should fall in one of those pillars. So that could be, it could be business, like I'm at a business, I'm interviewing Pat Curran about business, or I just found this out about business, or I'm doing research on this business and here's what I found. And then you go to finance, you've got these tips, and then you go to game stuff and it's her playing basketball at school X. Or practice and the hard work. So you're getting invested in her. You're learning from her on 2 different pillars as well. Now, I know a lot of people don't care about business, but correlated to what you're doing in your market. It could be soccer, gaming, and friends, fun stuff. And we're getting interested in your personality. We're watching your gaming clips. We're going on your Twitch channel. And then also we see that you had a great game last week and blah, 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 blah. But I think it's important to keep it in those pillars as you're creating, to keep a consistent messaging across your platforms. And then basic social hacks. I talked a little bit about this, just commenting back to people. Such an easy thing to do and such a thing that people love. Commenting back, being engaged in the conversations you want to be engaged in. If I'm a basketball player, let's say I'm the eighth man on the Bowling Green basketball team and I'm a senior walk-on. I'm not making the pros, but I love talking about the sport of basketball. Well, maybe I want to be an analyst. Why not? You should be on Twitter during the NBA playoffs and talking about things. Maybe you even turn the camera on and you talk a little bit about what you saw or what you did. You can grow an audience that way. And people do that on the regular who are not college athletes. But be involved in the conversations you want to be involved in. And also culturally relevant conversations, if that matters. If we're talking about basketball, like go on tonight when the NBA playoffs are on, there's millions of people talking about the games and what's going on and the different happenings. Be involved in that conversation. If that's important to you, if that's the market you want to attract, be involved in that conversation and put out content and engage with other people's content. All right. So what are some NIL opportunities? I've touched on some of these touched on some of these as I've gone along here, but you've got a knowledge base that people will pay for. I say that consistently on my social, and there's a couple different ways that you can figure that out and understand what that might look like and what it is. And that's why I said, what is that? Basic things like below that, I say tech platforms like membership programs. I talked on our last panel about Tommy Thompson, who's a player for the San Jose Quakes, who trains youth soccer players through Zoom, and they pay X number per session or X number of dollars per month to be a part of his training sessions. And he's sitting here, just sitting on his Zoom he's sitting in his hotel room or in his room, and he's training these athletes. And it's as simple as showing that you offer this and showing that you know what you're talking about from a skill standpoint. And this is one thing I think very few athletes at the professional level do. but I think such a massive opportunity. I know Carmelo Anthony started through the lens with his basketball training coach. And I think Trae Young's involved in that. I believe Nafisa Collier as well. And you pay per month to be a part of their platform and to learn the skills that these massively talented athletes are teaching people. Excuse me. I know TJ Dillashaw, Dominic Cruz are two UFC fighters who've done the same thing. Dominic Cruz is around a footwork program. TJ Dillashaw, I think, is more specifically around MMA practice. I don't know, but I know he does well in that. I've seen that and I've never actually bought it. So I don't know exactly what he's talking about. But I said to say there's so many opportunities around showcasing your knowledge and building an audience that cares about the knowledge and then selling them a program or monthly membership. And that can be like the examples I mentioned, to nutrition programs, to be specific around quarterback play or point guard play or passing or footwork as a soccer athlete or conditioning for wrestling or whatever your sport and whatever your specific thing is. There's a market for that. And I think it's important to understand that. Obviously, social partnerships is one thing that everybody talks about, whether it's through IG or Twitch or Twitter or TikTok. There are so many authentic collabs that you can build for. When we talk to an athlete, and we've gone down the ranks of who you are, who's your community, what we're building here is next step are what are some authentic brands that you could potentially work with? And this is something college athletes can do now in a couple of weeks, is what are some potential brand collabs that make sense for you specifically in your brand and your market, and go reach out to those brands. Now you'll need representation. You'll probably not be able to do that on your own, but it's very easy to put together something and say, hey, here's my value to you, Calvin Klein. Here's my value to you, BlissX, Our City Coffee, my coffee. Here's my value, and here's why we should work together. And that's where I talk about creating opportunities. You don't have to just take incoming opportunities only. You can go create your own opportunities around all this stuff. Social channels that you can monetize, specifically YouTube, Twitch. I know Twitter has their own monetization platform where you can have pre-roll ads on your videos now. IGTV you can monetize. And this, where you need to establish is where is your market, and then create the shit out of content in that market and be able to monetize through these things. Now, each platform has different ways and how much money you can make and where you can make the money, but all definitely opportunities around this. Appearances, that's usually one people talk about. That's an obvious one. But understand, again, going back to your value, is if someone would offer me $50 to show up and do anything, and as a college student, my ass would have been there. But I should have. Most athletes can command more than $50, and you should be. Understand what that means to you. It's your time, it's your effort, and understand that if they're having you do an appearance, they're making money to get people in the door. So it's not like they're doing charity work. They're trying to make people come to Joe's Pizza or go to car dealer shop X. And there's a value to them for you to be there. So understand that value and make sure you are charging that amount. Autograph, same type of concept. Don't be Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel should have made like $500,000 or more off of something like that. Tech platforms that talked about merch. Man, I should have pulled out some shirts I have of people that I support that have basic concepts of merch. When I talk to college athletes, everybody wants to build this glorious brand behind what they're doing. And they want to have the PC logo, and who gives a shit is my first thing. Who gives a shit about what that PC says or what that means? Steph Curry just came out with his own Curry brand like 6 months ago. So I say that to say, like, I could create a PC, like knocking down a ball, which was, I guess, a good thing I probably did in college, or around Bowling Green. Our rival was Toledo. I could put a beat the team up north, which is what we would say. Beat the team up north in these colors probably would sell. I could create, I talked about Simone Biles. I talked about Simone Biles yesterday, and she doesn't have a merch line, but Simone Biles could put the GOAT, which is a viral thing around her, and just put an SB. That would sell millions of dollars. But I think there's so much more than just putting out some logo that has no meaning or relationship to anyone specifically. You can be making money off of these other types of concepts. The Mormons versus Mullets t-shirt for the BYU versus Coastal Carolina game this year went super viral. And if one of the athletes were able to monetize that, they would have made a ton of money off just a simple basic concept based off the match for the week. And you saw, if you looked in the stands, everybody had those shirts, and that's an opportunity to make money off there as well. And then camps excuse me, camps and clinics. Talked about that with Selena and the opportunities around that. That's, again, a no-brainer. From when I talk to tech platforms and memberships, you're making money, you're creating opportunities based off the knowledge base you have and the skills you have as well. That could be either locally or where you are at school. How should athletes go by protecting their personal brand specific to merch? I'll answer that. This is one more thing here. Just if you have any questions, reach out to me on IG, Twitter. I'll answer some questions here as well. I've got about 10 more minutes. Reach out to me, DM me, follow me. I respond to everybody. I've in my DMs today are lower level Division II athletes. I had an NAIA athlete reach out, and also obviously high level athletes as well. Just asking me like, what can I do or how can I do it? I respond to everybody as long as you're not creepy and weird about it. I respond to everybody and I will get to your question, and hopefully I add some value to what you're trying to do. So I'm going to stop the share here. And if anyone has questions, go ahead and type them in here. I know I have a couple I got beforehand. All right. So Tyler asks, how should athletes go by protecting their personal brand specific to merch? I know people talk about licensing, and I think that can be important at some level. Or like LLCs, and I think that's important at some level. But if I'm putting out a Mormons versus Mullets merch, just put that shit out. That's my thought process behind it. I think it costs money to have an LLC. It costs money to do some of these other things. It costs money to get a trademark on who you are. And I think definitely Trevor Lawrence, Zion Williamson, Paige Beckers, those types should do that. But if you're just trying to make a few bucks off a concept tee, I don't think it needs to be that serious. Lots of athletes do stuff like this. Lots of podcasts do stuff like this, and influencers, they just put out concepts behind whatever might be going on and create around there. What other questions? You're welcome. He says, thank you. I say, you're welcome. I know I had a question about that I got from somebody else. And I think I answered most of the questions that people hit me up on social about. But one question I saw was, can schools take money as an agency type fee? And I did see one, not necessarily. I did see in Georgia, there was a part of what they were able to do is like, they can take up to 80% of what an athlete makes and shoot it through the pool of the rest of the athletes. And while that's super dumb and idiotic, I also think there's not a school that would be that dumb to actually do that. Because if I'm at Georgia and that happens to me as an athlete, I'll just go to Alabama, or I'll go to Florida or South Carolina, or I'll go to a different school and handle my business there. I don't need to be at Georgia and you take up to 80% of my earnings. So I don't think schools will do that. They certainly could, I guess, but I don't think that'll happen.